Oh, hi, Clover. Hi, Clover. Thank you. You want to say hi? Hi. Okay, thank you. Okay, what an exciting episode. We're going to be going through Self-Reliance by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Very exciting. It's like I'm rereading these for the very first time. I don't think I've read Emerson in probably a decade. And it's going through this again. It's like reading it for the first time. And it's just like so empowering, and it's just so great. I love this essay so much. I will read the back first. And and I also wanted to say that I'm probably going to reserve Wednesdays for either. I think I'm going to go through. I've done so much in my life that I think I'm going to cover each year of my life successively, like 18, 19, 20 years old. Just because, like, I've moved 20 plus times and done quite a bit. So I don't know, maybe I'll share some of that and maybe dive into some of my political opinions on how I think the government can improve, and kind of share with some of the experiences I've gone through that has led to those conclusions in general. Let's start with the back of the book. Essayist, poet, and philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson, 1803 to 1882. Notably, he was born before and died after Thoreau. And of course, they knew each other because Thoreau lived on the land at Walden Pond that belonged to Emerson. So obviously they knew each other. Propounded and a transcendental idealism emphasizing self-reliance, self-culture, and individual expression, the 6 essays and 1 address included in this volume, selected from Essays, first series, 1841, and Essays, second series, 1844, offer a representative sampling of his views, outlining the moral idealism as well as a hint of the later skepticism that colored his thought. In addition to the celebrated title essay, the others included here are History, Friendship, The Oversoul, The Poet, Experience, plus the well-known and frequently read Harvard Divinity School Address. So there you go. I actually don't think I've actually read the Harvard School Address, so I'll be interested to get to that this weekend. I'm going to be skipping around a little bit just because it's kind of confusing. He invokes the name of God a lot. I think that's kind of emblematic of the times, but he very much comes across as an atheist, but he talks about attending church. So I'm not really sure where his religious beliefs lands. It seems to be kind of confusing to me, but we'll read through it, and I think what he's really getting after is self-reliance is not about this like rugged individualism that is about doing everything yourself, or a pragmatic view of it. A self-reliance would be more of a moral self-reliance, figuring things out for yourself, marching to the beat of your own drummer, kind of like those same kind of themes that we saw in the later part of Thoreau's essays as well. So there's a Latin quote here that he says, "Do not seek for things outside of yourself." And that's kind of how he sets up this chapter. So I'm skipping ahead to the second page. This essay isn't super long, but I feel like they get down into the weeds, and it gets confusing when you read it word for word. So I'm just going to try to stick to some of the highlights that I've underlined already. There is a time in every man's education when he arrives at the conviction that envy is ignorance, that imitation is suicide, that he must take himself for better, for worse, as his portion, that though the wide universe is full of good, no kernel of nourishing corn can come to him but through his toil bestowed on that plot of ground which is given him to till. The power which resides in him is new in nature, and none but he knows that which he can do. Nor does he know until he has tried, not for knowing one face, one character, one fact which makes impression on him, and another none. This sculpture in the memory is not without pre-established harmony. The eye was placed where one ray should fall, that it might testify of that particular ray. We but half express ourselves, and are ashamed of the divine idea which each of us represents. It may be safely trusted as proportionate and of good issue, so it be faithfully imparted. But God will not have his work made manifest by cowards. A man is relieved and gay when he has put his heart into his work and done his best. But what he has said or done otherwise shall give him no peace. It is a deliverance which does not deliver. In the attempt, his genius deserts him. No muse befriends, no invention, no hope. Trust thyself. Every heart vibrates to that iron string. Accept the place the divine providence has found for you. The society of your contemporaries, the connection of events, great men have always done so, and confided themselves childlike to the genius of their age, betraying their perception that the absolutely trustworthy was seated at their heart, working through their hands, predominating in all their being. And we are now men, and must accept in the highest mind that same transcendent destiny, and not mirrors and invalids in a protected corner, not cowards fleeing before revolution, but guides, redeemers, and benefactors, obeying the almighty effort and advancing on chaos and the dark. Whew! Man, Emerson knows how to write. What pretty oracles nature yields on us on this text, in the face and behavior of children, babes, and even brutes, that divide and rebel mind, that distrust of a sentiment because our arithmetic has computed the strength and means opposed to our purpose. These have not. Their mind being whole, their eye is not yet unconquered, and when we look in their faces, we are disconcerted. Infancy conforms to nobody. All conform to it. So that one babe commonly makes 4 or 5 out of the adults who prattle and play to it. So God has armed youth and puberty and manhood no less with its own piquancy, piquancy, and charm, and made it inevitable and gracious, and its charms not to be put by, if it will stand by itself. Do not think the youth has no force, because it cannot speak to you and me. Hark! In the next room, his voice is sufficiently clear and emphatic. It seems he knows how to speak to his contemporaries, bashful or bold. Then he will know how to make us seniors very unnecessary. Goodness gracious, these dogs. The nonchalance of boys who are sure of a dinner would disdain as much as a lord to do or say aught to a considerate one. Is the healthy attitude of human nature. A boy is in the parlor what the pit is in the playhouse, independent, irresponsible, looking out from his corner on such people and facts as pass by. He tries and sentences them on their merits in the swift summary way of boys, as good, bad, interesting, silly, eloquent, or troublesome. He cumbers himself never about the quarrels, about interests. He gives an independent, genuine verdict. You must court him. He does not court you, but the man is, as it were, clapped into jail by his consequences. Consciousness. But the man is, as it were, clapped into jail by his consciousness. As soon as he has once acted or spoken with eclat, E-C-L-A-T, he is a committed person, watched by the symphony or the hatred of hundreds, whose affections now enter into his account. There is no lethe for this, L-E-T-H-E, that he could pass again into this neutrality. Who can thus avoid all pledges, and having observed, observe again from the same unaffected, unbiased, unbridled, uninfringed, and innocence must always be formidable. He would utter opinions on all passing affairs, which being seen to be not be private, but necessary, would sink like darts into the ears of men and put them in fear. These are the voices which we hear in solitude, but they grow faint and inaudible as we enter into the world. Society everywhere is in a conspiracy against the manhood of every one of its members. Society is a joint stock company in which the members agree for the better securing of his bread to each shareholder to surrender the liberty and culture of the eater. The virtue of the most request is conformity. Self-reliance is an aversion. It loves not realities and creators, but names and customs. Whoso would be a man must be a nonconformist. He who would gather immortal palms must not be hindered by the nature of goodness, but must explore if it be goodness. Nothing is at last sacred, but the integrity of your own mind. Absolve you to yourself, and you shall have the suffrage of the world. I remember an answer which, when quite young, I was prompted to make to a a valued advisor, who was wont to importune, who was wont to importune with me with the dear old doctrines of the church. On my saying, what have I to do with the sacredness of traditions, if I live wholly from within? My friend suggested, but these impulses may be from below, not from above. I replied, they do not seem to be as such. But if I am the devil's child, I will live then from the devil. No law can be sacred to me. But by the nature, but that of my nature. Good and bad are but names of readily transferable to that or this. The only right is what is after my constitution. The only wrong is what is against it. A man is to carry himself in the presence of all opposition, as if everything were titular and ethereal but he. I am ashamed to think how easily we capitulate to badges and names, to large societies and dead institutions. Every decent and well-spoken individual afflicts and sways me more than is right. I ought to go upright and vital and speak the rude truth is as always. If malice and vanity wear the coat of philanthropy, shall that pass? If an angry bigot assumes this bountiful case of abolition and comes to me with his last news from the Barbados, why should I not say to him, go love thy infant, love thy woodchopper, be good-natured and modest, have thy grace, and never varnish your hard, uncharitable ambition with this incredible tenderness for black folk 1,000 miles off. Thy love affair is spite at home. Rough and graceless would be your greeting, but truth is handsomer and the affliction of love. Your goodness must have some edges to it, else it has none. The doctrine of hatred must be preached, and as the counteraction of the doctrine of love, when the pules, Pules, and wines, I shun father and mother and wife and brother. When my genius calls me, I would write on the lintels, Lintels, goodness gracious, of the doorpost, whim. I hope it is somewhat better than whim at last, but we cannot spend the day in explanation. Expect me not to show cause why I seek or why I exclude company. Then again, do not tell me, as a good man did today, of my obligation to put all poor men in good situation. Are they my poor? I tell thee, thou foolish philanthropist. Goodness. That I grudge the dollar, the dime, the cent. I give to such men as do not belong to me, and to whom I do not belong. There is a class of persons to whom by all spiritual affinity I am brought and sold. For them I will go to prison, if need be. But your miscellaneous popular charities, the education of college of fools, the building of meeting houses in the vain and to which many now stand, alms to sots, and the thousandfold relief societies, though I confess with shame, I sometimes succumb and give the dollar. It is a wicked dollar, which by and by I shall have the manhood to withhold. Okay, that should be it for dogs. Virtues are, in the popular estimate, rather the exception rather than the rule. There is the man and his virtues. Men do what is called a good action, as some piece of courage or charity, much as they would pay a fine in expiation of daily non-appearance on parade. Their works are done as an apology or extenuation of their living in the world, as invalids and insane pay a high board. Their virtues are penances. I do not wish to expedite, but to live. My life is for itself and not to be a spectacle. I much prefer that it would be of lower strain, so it be genuine and equal, than that it would be glittering and unsteady. I wish it to be sound and sweet, and not to need diet and bleeding. I ask primary evidence that you are a man, and refuse this appeal from the man to his actions. I know that for myself it makes no difference whether I do or forbear those actions which are reckoned excellent. I cannot consent to pay for a privilege where I have an intrinsic right. Few and mean as my gifts may be, I actually am, and do not need for my own assurance or the assurance of my fellows any secondary testimony. What I must do is all that concerns me, not what the people think. This rule, equally adorns in actual and intellectual life, may serve for the whole distinction between greatness and meanness. It is the harder because you will always find those who think they know what is your duty better than you know it. It is easy in the world to live after the world's opinion. It is easy in solitude to live after your own. But the great man is he who lives in the midst of the crowd, keeps with perfect sweetness the independence of solitude. The objection to conforming to usages that have become dead to you is that it scatters your force. It loses your time and blurs your impression of your character. If you maintain a dead church, contribute to a dead Bible society, vote with the great party either for the government or against it, spread your table like base housekeepers, under all these screens, I have difficulty to detect the precise man you are. And of course, so much force is withdrawn from your proper life, but do your work, and I shall know you. Do your work, and you shall reinforce yourself. A man must consider what a blind man's bluff is in this game of conformity. If I know your sect, I anticipate your argument. I hear a preacher announce for his text and topic of expediency of one of the institutions of his church. Do I not know beforehand that not possibly can he say a new and spontaneous word? Do I not know that with all the ostentation of examining the grounds of the institution, he will do no such thing? Do I not know that he has pledged to himself not to look at one side, the permitted side, not as a man but as a parish member? He is a retained attorney, and these heirs of the bench are the emptiest of affliction. While most men have bound their eyes with one or another handkerchief and attached themselves to some one of these communities of opinion, this conformity makes them not false in a few particulars, authors of a few lies, but false in all other particulars. Their every truth is not quite true. Their two is not the real two. Their four is not the real four, so that their every word they say chagrins us. CHAGRINS. Okay. And we not know where to begin to set them right. Meantime, nature is not slow to equip us in the prison uniform of the party to which we adhere. We come to wear one, cut of face and figure, and acquire by degrees of the gentlest asinine expression. There is a mortifying experience in particular, which does not fail to wreak itself also in the general history. I mean, quote, the foolish face of praise, unquote, the forced smile, which we put on in company where we do not feel at ease in the answer to conversation, which does not interest us. The muscles not spontaneously move, but moved by low, usurping willfulness, grow tight about the outline of the face with the most disagreeable sensation. For non-conformity, the world whips you with its displeasure, and therefore a man must know how to estimate a sour face. The bystanders look askance on him in the public street or in the friend's parlor. If this aversation had its origin in contempt and resistance like his own, he might go home with a sad countenance. But the sour face of the multitude, like the sweet faces, has no deep cause, but are put on and off as the wind blows, as a newspaper directs. Yet the discontent of the multitude and formidable than that of the Senate and the college. It is easy enough for a firm man who knows the world to brook the rage of the cultivated classes. Their rage is discouraged and prudent, for they are timid as being very vulnerable themselves. But when to their feminine rage the indignation of the people is added, when the ignorant and the poor are aroused, when the intelligent brute force that lies at the bottom of society is made to growl and mow, it needs the habit of magnanimity, and religion to treat it godlike as a trifle of no concernment. The other terror that scares us from self-trust is our consistency, a reverence for our past act or word, because the eyes of others have no other data for computing our orbit than our past actions, and we are loath to disappoint them. But why should you keep your head over your shoulder? Why drag about this corpse of your memory, lest you contradict somewhat you have stated in this or in that public place? Suppose you should contradict yourself, what then? It seems to be a rule of wisdom never to rely on your memory alone, scarcely even in acts of pure memory, but to bring the past for judgment into the thousand-eyed present and live ever in a new day. In your metaphysics, you have denied personality to the deity, yet when the devout motions of the soul come, yield to them heart and life, though they should clothe God with shape and color. Leave your theory, as Joseph his coat, in the hand of the harlot, and flee. A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds, adorned by little statesmen and philosophers and divines. With consistency, a great soul has simply nothing to do. He may as well concern himself with his shadow on the wall. Speak what you think now in hard words, and tomorrow speak what tomorrow thinks in hard words again, though it contradict everything you said today. So you shall be sure to be misunderstood. Is it so bad then to be misunderstood? Pythagoras was misunderstood, and Socrates, and Jesus, and Luther, and Copernicus, and Galileo, and Newton, and every pure and wise spirit that ever took to flesh. To be great is to be misunderstood. I suppose no man can violate his nature. All the sallies of his will are rounded in by the law of his being, as the inequalities of Andes, Andes, and Himalaya are insignificant in the curve of the sphere, nor does it matter how you gauge and try him. A character is like an Aristotelic acrostic or Alexandrian stanza. Read it forward, backwards, or across, it still spells the same thing. In this pleasing, concrete wood life which God allows me, let me record day by day my honest thought about without prospect or retrospect, and see it not. My book should smell of pines and resound with the hum of insects. The shallow over my window should interweave that thread or straw he carries in his bill into my web also. We pass for what we are. Character teaches above our wills. Men imagine that they communicate their virtue or vice only by overt actions, and do not see that virtue or vice emit a breath every moment. There will be an agreement in whatever variety of actions, so they be each honest and neutral in their hour, for of one will, that the actions will be harmonious, however unlike they seem. These varieties are lost sight of at a little distance. At a little height of thought, one tendency unites them all. The voyage of the best ship is a zigzagging line of 100 tasks. See the line from a sufficient distance and it straightens itself to the average tendency. Your genuine action will explain itself and will explain your other genuine actions. Your conformity explains nothing. Act singly, and what you have already done singly will justify you now. Greatness appeals to the future. If I can be firm enough today to do right and scorn eyes, I must have done so much right before as to defend me now. Be it how it will, do right now. Always scorn appearances, and you always may. The force of character is cumulative, and the foregone days of virtue work their health into this. What makes this majesty of the heroes of the Senate and the field, which so fills the imagination, the consciousness of the train of great days and victories behind? They shed a united light on the advancing actor. He is attending as by a visible escort of angels. That is which throws thunder into Chatham's voice, and dignity into Washington's port, and America into Adams's eye. Honor is venerable to us because it is not empress. It is always ancient virtue. We worship it today because it is not of today. We love it and pay it homage because it is not a trap for our love and homage, but is self-dependent, self-derived, and therefore of an old immaculate pedigree, even if shown in a young person. I hope in these days we have heard the last of conformity and consistency. Let the words be gazetted and ridiculous henceforth. Instead of the gong for dinner, let us hear a whistle from the Spartan fife. Let us never bow and apologize more. A great man is coming to eat at my house. I do not wish to please him. I wish that he should wish to please me. I will stand here for humanity, and though I would make it kind, I would make it true. Let us affront and reprimand the smooth mediocrity and squalid, oh my goodness, these ancient words, contentment of the times, and hurl in the face of custom and trade and office the fact which is the upshot of all history, that there is a great responsible thinker and actor working wherever a man works, that a true man belongs to no other time or place, but is the center of things. Where he is, there is nature. He measures you and all men and all events. Ordinarily, everybody in society reminds us of someone else, or of some other person. Characterly, reality reminds you of nothing else. Character, reality reminds you of nothing else, or of some other person, or it takes the place of the whole creation. The man must be so much that he must make all circumstances indifferent. Every true man is a cause, a country, and an age, requires infinite spaces and numbers and time fully to accomplish his design, and posterity seems to follow his steps as a train of clients. A man Caesar is born, and for all ages after, we have a Roman Empire. Christ is born, and millions of minds so grow and cleave to his genius, that he is confounded with virtue and the possible of man. An institution is the lengthened shadow of one man, as monochasm of the hermit Antony, the Reformation of Luther, Quakerism of Fox, Methodism of Wesley, abolition of Clarkson, Sappho of Milton, called the height of Rome, and all history revolves itself very easily into the biography of few stout and earnest persons. Let a man then know his worth, and keep things under his feet. Let him not peep or steal, or sulk up and down with the air of charity boy, a bastard or an interloper in the world which exists for him. But the man in the street, finding no worth in himself, which corresponds to the force which built a tower or sculptured a marble god, feels poor when he looks on these. To him a palace, a statue, or a costly book have an alien and forbidding air, much like a gay epilogue, and seem to say that, "Who are you, sir?" Yet they are all his, suitors for his notice, petitioners to his faculties, that they will come out and take possession. The pitcher waits for my verdict. It is not to command me, but I am to settle its claims to praise. That popular fable of the sot who was picked up dead drunk in the street, carried to the Duke's house, washed and dressed and laid in the Duke's bed, and on his waking treated with all obsequies, ceremony, like the Duke, and assured that he had been insane, owes its popularity to the fact that it symbolizes so well the state of man, who is in the world a sort of sot, but now and then wakes up, exercises his reason, and finds himself a true prince. Our reading is mendicant and syncopatic. In history, our imagination plays us false. Kingdom and lordship, power and estate are a granular vocabulary than private John and Edward in a small house and common day's work. But the things of life are the same to both. The sum total of both is the same. Why all this difference to Alfred and Scatterbeg and of Gustavus? I don't know who any of those people are. Suppose they were virtuous. Did they wear out virtue? As great a stake depends on your private act today, as followed their public and renewed steps. When private men shall act with original views, the luster will be transferred from the actions of kings to those of gentlemen. The world has been instructed by its kings with who have so magnetized the eyes of nations. It has been taught by this colossal symbol the mutual reverence that is due from man to man, the joyful loyalty with which men have everywhere suffered the king, the noble, or the great proprietor to walk among them by a law of his own, make his own scale of men and things, and reverse theirs, pay for benefits not with money, but with honor, and represent the law in his person. This was hieroglyphic by which they obscurely signified their consciousness of their own right and comeliness of the right of every man. The magnetism which all original action exerts is explained when we inquire the reason of self-trust. Who is the trustee? Who is the aboriginal self, on which a universal reliance may be grounded? What is the nature and power of that science-baffling star without parallax, without calculable elements, which shoots a ray of beauty even into trivial and impure actions, if the least mark the independence appear? The inquiry leads us to that source, at once the essence of genius, of virtue, and of life, which we shall call spontaneity or instinct. We denote this primary wisdom as institution, whilst all later teachings are tuitions in that deep force, the last fact behind which analysis cannot go. All things find their common origin. For the sense of being which in calm hour rises, we know not how, in the soul, is not diverse from things, from space, from light, from time, from man, but one with them, and proceeds obviously from the same source whence their life and beings also proceeds. We first share the life by which things exist, and afterwards see them as appearances in nature, and forget that we have shared their cause. Here is the fountain of action and of thought. Here are the lungs of that inspiration which giveth man wisdom, and which cannot be denied without impiety and atheism. We live in the lap of immense intelligence, which makes us receivers of its truth and organs of its activities. When we discern justice, when we discern truth, we do nothing of ourselves, but allow a passage to its beams. If we ask whence it comes, if we seek to pry into the soul that causes, all philosophy is at fault. Its presence or its absence is all we can affirm. Every man discriminates between the voluntary acts of his mind and his involuntary perceptions, and knows that to his involuntary perceptions, a perfect faith is due. He may err in the expression of them, but he knows that these things are so, like day and night, not to be disputed. My willful actions and acquisitions are but roving. The idlest reverie, the faintest native emotion, command my curiosity and respect. Thoughtless people contradict as readily the statement of perceptions as of opinions, or rather much more readily, for they do not distinguish between perception and notion. They fancy that I choose to see this or that thing, but perception is not whimsical, but fatal. If I see a trait, my children will see it after me. And in course of time, all mankind, although it may chance that no one has seen it before me, for my perception of it is as much a fact as the sun. The relations of the soul to the divine spirit are so pure that it is profane to seek to interpose helps. It must be that when God speaketh, he should communicate, not one thing, but all things, should fill the world with his voice, should scatter forth light, nature, time, souls from the center of the present thought, and new date and new create the whole. Whenever a mind is simple and receives a divine wisdom, the old things pass away. Means, teachers, texts, temples fall. It lives now and absorbs past and future into the present hour. All things are made sacred by relation to it, one as much as another. All things are dissolved to the center by their cause, and in the universal miracle, petty and particular miracles disappear. If, therefore, a man claims to know and speak of God and carries country in another world, believe him not. Is the acorn better than the oak, which is its fullness and completion? Is the parent better than the child into whom he has cast his ripened being? Whence then this worship of the past? The centuries are conspirators against the sanity and authority of the soul. Time and space are but psychological colors which the eye makes, but the soul is light where it is day where it is night, and history is an impertinence and an injury. If it be anything more than a cheerful apologue or parable of my being and becoming. Man is timid and apologetic. He is no longer upright. He dare say not, I think, I am, but quotes some saint or sage. He is ashamed before the blade of grass or the blowing rose. These roses under my window make no reference to the former roses or to better ones. They are for what they are. They exist with God today. There is no time to them. There is simply the rose. It is perfect in every moment of its existence. Before a leaf bud has burst, its whole life acts. In the full-blown flower, there is no more. In the leafless root, there is no less. Its nature is satisfied, and it satisfies nature in all moments alike. But man postpones or remembers. He does not live in the present, but with reverted eye laments to the past, or, heedless of the riches that surround him, stands on tiptoe to foresee the future. He cannot be happy and strong until he too lives with nature in the present, above time. This should be plain enough. Yet see what strong intellects dare not yet hear of God himself. Unless he speak the phraseology of I know not what David or Jeremiah or Paul, we shall not always set so great a price on a few texts, on a few lines. We are like children who repeat by rote the sentences of grandmas and tutors, and, as they grow older, of the men of talent and character they chance to see, painfully recollecting the exact words they spoke. Afterwards, when they have come to the point of view which those who had uttered those sayings, they understand them, and are willing to let the words go, for, at any time, they can use words as good when occasion comes. If we live truly, we shall see truly. It is as easy for the strong man to be strong as it is for the weak to be weak. When we have new perception, we shall gladly disburden the memory of its hoarded treasures as old rubbish. When a man lives with God, his voice shall be as sweet as the murmur of the brook and the rustle of the corn. And now, at last, the highest truth on the subject remains unsaid. Probably cannot be said, for all that we have said is the far-off remembering of the institution. That thought, by which I can now nearest approach to say it, is this. When good is near you, when you have life in yourself, it is not by any known or accustomed way. You shall not discern the footprints of any other. You shall not see the face of man. You shall not hear any name. The way, the thought, the good shall be wholly strange and new. It shall exude example and experience. You take the way from man, not to man. All persons that ever existed are its forgotten ministers. Fear and hope are alike beneath it. There is somewhat low even in hope. In the hour of vision, there is nothing that can be called gratitude, nor properly joy. The soul raised over passion beholds identity and eternal causation, perceives the self-existence of truth and right, and calms itself with knowing that all things go well. Vast spaces of nature, the Atlantic Ocean, the South Sea, long intervals of time, years, centuries, are of no account. This which I think and feel underlay every former state of life and circumstances, as it does underlie my present and what is called life and what is called death. I'm just going to take a drink of water. Life only avails, not the having lived. Power ceases in the instant of repose. It resides in the moment of transition from a past to a new state, in the shooting of the gulf, in the darting to an aim. This one fact the world hates, that the soul becomes, for that forever degrades the past. For that forever degrades the past, turns all riches to poverty, all reputation to shame, confounds the saint with the rogue, shoves Jesus and Judas equally aside. Why then do we pirate of self-reliance? Insomuch as the soul is present, there will be power not confident but agent. To talk of reliance is a poor external way of speaking. Speak rather of that which relies, because its works and is. Who is more obedience than I masters me? Though he should not raise his finger, round him I must resolve by the gravitation of spirits. We fancy it rhetoric when we speak of eminent virtue. We do not yet see that virtue is height, that a man or a company of men, plastic and permeable to principles, by the law of nature must overpower and ride all cities, nations, kings, rich men, poets who are not. This is the ultimate fact which we so quickly reach on this. As on every topic, the resolution of all into the ever blessed one. Self-existence is the attribute of the supreme cause, and it constitutes the measure of good by the degree in which it enters into all lower forms. All things real are so by. I'm going to start that sentence again. All things real are so by so much virtue as they contain. Commerce, husbandry, hunting, whaling, war, eloquence, personal weight are somewhat, and engage my respect as examples of presence and impure action. I see the same law working in nature for conservation and growth. Power is in nature the essential measure of right. Nature suffers nothing to remain in her kingdom which cannot help itself. The genius of maturation of a planet, its poise and orbit, the bended tree recovering itself from the strong wind, the vital resources of every animal, vegetable, are demonstrations of the self-sufficing, and therefore self-relying soul. Thus, all concentrates, let us not rove, let us sit at home with the cause. Let us stun and astonish the intruding rabble of men and books and institutions by a simple declaration of the divine fact. Bid the invaders take the shoes off their feet, for God is here within. Let our simplicity judge them, for our docility to our own law demonstrate the poverty of nature and fortune beside our native riches. But now we are a mob. Man does not stand in awe of man, nor is his genius admonished to stay at home, to put itself in communication with the internal ocean, but it goes abroad to beg a cup of water of the urns of other men. We must go alone. I like the silent church before the service begins, better than any preaching. How far off, how cool, how chaste the persons look, begirt each one with the precinct or sanctuary. So let us always sit. Why should we assume the faults of our friends, or wife, or father, or child, because they sit around our hearth, or are said to have the same blood? All men have my blood, and I have all men's. Not for that will I adopt their petulance or folly, even to the extent of being ashamed of it. But your isolation must not be mechanical, but spiritual. That is, must be elevation. At times the whole world seems to be in conspiracy to importune you with emphatic trifles. Friend, client, child, sickness, fear, want, charity, all knock at once at thy closest door and say, come out unto us, but keep thy state. Come not into their confusion. The power men poses to annoy me. I give them but a weak curiosity. No man can come to me but through my act. What we love that we have, but by desire we bereave ourselves of that love. If we cannot at once rise to the sanctities of obedience and faith, let us at least resist our temptation. Let us enter into the state of war and wake Thor and Woden and courage and consistency in our Saxon breasts. This is to be done in our smooth times by speaking the truth. Check this line hospitality and line affliction. Lots of underlining in these next sections. Live no longer to the expectation of those of these deceived and deceiving people with whom we converse. Say to them, O father, O mother, O wife, O brother, O friend, I have lived with you after appearances hitherto. Henceforward I am the truths. Be it known unto you that henceforward I obey no laws less than the eternal law. I will have no covenants but proximities. I shall endeavor to nourish my parents, to support my family, to be chaste husband of one wife. But these relations I must fill after a new and unprecedented way. I appeal from your customs. I must be myself. I cannot break myself any longer for you or you. If you can love me for what I am, we shall be the happier. If you cannot, I will still seek to deserve that you should. I will not hide my tastes or aversions. I will so trust that what is deep is holy, that I will do strongly before the sun and moon whatever in lie rejoices me, and the heart appoints. If you are noble, I will love you. If you are not, I will not hurt you, and myself by hypocritical attentions. If you are true, but not in the same truth with me, cleave to your companions. I will seek my own. I do this not selfishly, but humbly and truly. It is alike your interests, and mine, and all men's. However long we have dealt in lies to live in truth. Does this sound harsh today? You will soon love what is dictated by your nature as well as mine. And if we follow the truth, it will bring us out safe at last. But so you may give these friends pain. Yes, but I cannot sell my liberty and my power to save their sensibilities. Besides, all persons have their moments of reason. When they look out onto the region of absolute truth, will they justify me and do the same thing. The populace think that your rejection of popular standards is a rejection of all standards, a mere antinomianism. And the bold sensualist will use the same philosophy to gild his crimes, but the law of consciousness abides. There are two confessionals, in one or the other of which we must be shriven. You may fulfill your round of duties by clearing yourself in the direct or in the reflex way. Consider whether you have satisfied your relations to father, mother, cousin, neighbor, town, cat, dog, whether any of these can upbraid you. But I may also neglect this reflex standard and absolve me to myself. I have my own stern claims and perfect circle. It denies the name of duty to many offices that are called duty. But if I can discharge its debts, it enables me to dispense with the popular code. If anyone imagines that this law is lax, let him keep its commandments for one day. And truly it demands something godlike in him, who has cast off the common motives of humanity and has ventured to trust himself for a taskmaster. High be his heart, faithful his will, clear his sight, that he may in good earnest be doctrine, society, law to himself, that a simple purpose may be to him as strong as iron necessity is to others. If any man consider the present aspects of what is called by distinction society, he will see the need of these ethics. The sinew and heart of man seems to be drawn out, and we are becoming timorous, desponding with whimperers. We are afraid of truth, afraid of fortune, afraid of death, and afraid of each other. Our age yields no great and perfect persons. We want men and women who shall renovate life and our societal state, but we see that the most natures are insolvent, cannot satisfy their own wants, have an ambition out of all proportion to their practical force, and do lean and beg day and night continuously. Our housekeeping is mendicant. Our art, our occupations, our marriages, our religion, we have not chosen, but society has chosen for us. We are parlor soldiers. We shun the rugged battle of fate, where strength is born. If our young men miscarry in their first enterprises, they lose all heart. If the young merchant fails, men say he is ruined. If the finest genius studies at one of our college and is not installed in an office within 1 year after Afterwards, in the cities or suburbs of Boston or New York, it seems to his friends and to himself that he is right in being disheartened and in complaining the rest of his life. A sturdy lad from New Hampshire or Vermont, who in turn tries all the professions, who teams it, farms it, peddles, keeps a school, preaches, edits a newspaper, goes to Congress, buys a township, and so forth, in successive years, and always, like a cat, falls on his feet, is worth 100 of these city dolls. He walks abreast with his days and feels no shame in not, quote, studying a profession, end quote. For he does not postpone his life, but lives already. He has not one chance, but 100 chances. Let a stoic open the resources of man and tell men that they are not leaning willows, and can and must detach themselves. That with the exercise of self-trust, new powers shall appear, that a man is the Word made flesh, born to shed healing to the nations, that he should be ashamed of our compassion, and that in the moment he acts from himself, tossing the laws, the books, idolatries, and customs out the window, we pity him no more, and thank and revere him, and that the teacher shall restore the life of man to splendor, and make his name dear to all history. It is easy to see that a greater self-reliance must work a revolution in all the offices and relations of men, in their religion, in their education, in their pursuits, in their modes of living, their association, in their property, in their speculative views. Okay, now I'm going to be skipping ahead a little bit. I'm just going to read some of the I'll read some of the parts I've outlined, skipping forward. But prayer as a means to effect a private end is meanness and theft. Skip. The secret of fortune is joy in our hands. Welcome evermore to gods and men is the self-helping man. For him all doors are flung wide. Him all tongues greet, all honors crown, all eyes follow with desire. Our love goes out to him and embraces him because he did not need it. Insist on yourself. Never imitate. Your own gift you can present every moment with the cumulative force of a whole life's cultivation, but of the adopted talent or of another, you have only extemporaneous, half possession, that which each can do best. None but his maker can teach him. No man yet knows what it is, nor can, till that person has exhibited it. Where is the master who could have taught Shakespeare? Where is the master who could have instructed Franklin, or Washington, or Bacon, or Newton? Every great man is unique. Shakespeare will never be made by the study of Shakespeare. Skip. All men plume themselves on the improvement of society, and no man improves. Skip. Society is a wave. The wave moves onward, but the water of which it is composed does not. The same particle does not rise from the valley to the ridge. Its unity is only phenomenal. The persons who make up a nation today, next year die, and their existence with them. Get into the last page here. So I just want to make sure I'm not skipping anything important before the last paragraph. Yeah, okay. So we're just going to read the last paragraph and that'll be the end of the reading here. So use all that is called fortune. Most men gamble with her and gain all and lose all as her wheel rolls. Referring to like Boethius's Wheel of Fortune, where he says throughout your life, is a wheel of fortune. Sometimes you'll have good times, bad times, but it's all just chance. But do thou... Okay, so I'll just start that again. So use all that is called fortune. Most men gamble with her and gain all and lose all as her wheel rolls. But do thou leave as unlawful these winnings and deal with cause and effect, the chancellors of God. In the will, work and acquire. And thou hast chained the wheel of chance, and shall sit hereafter out of fear from her rotations, a political victory, a rise of rents, the recovery of your sick, or the return of your absent friend, or some other favorable event raises your spirits, and you think good days are preparing for you. Do not believe it. Nothing can bring you peace but yourself. Nothing can bring you peace but the triumph of your principles. And there you go. Self-reliance. That is that right there. So, quite inspiring to be brave enough to step out on your own and to handle your own affairs and to think for yourself and to tackle fortune. So there you go. Tomorrow we're going to be doing the essay by Emerson again about friendship, and that'll be it for this week. And then we'll I'm thinking the next book we'll get into is probably going to be looking at going back. So this is kind of like these Emerson and Thoreau are my favorite philosophers to read. But then we're going to be going back to Socrates, going right from the beginning. Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, as they are really the foundation of philosophy. Kind of started my favorites as a teaser of what is to come. But yeah, anyways, fun times. We'll catch you on the flippity flop.